Up next, a family band whose #1 hit in the 90s made them the first and only family to have 3 generations of #1 singles. The group tells the story of this #1 rock ballad that was inspired by supermodel Cindy Crawford. The story next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you are addicted to classic rock and pop, subscribe below to our channel right now and make sure to click the bell so you never miss an episode of our daily features. We got the story straight from the artists. Give us a look on Patreon as well for more videos, extras there. You can be an honorary producer, and there's more content. It's time for another episode of our series, Revelations. Of course, featured artists go very deep on their biggest hits. 1990 was a transitional year in music. We've talked about it before. You know, the 80s had ended, but even though we were in a new decade, things hadn't really changed at that point. It'd be a good year or more before Nirvana completely changed the landscape with Nevermind. The charts were all over the place. You know, New Jack Swing was in full effect. As well as a lot of dance records. College rock was knocking on the door. Hip hop was mixing it up. Glam metal was still in heavy rotation. While pop was going the route of, Mariah Carey and Paula Abdul. In the middle of all of this, a band of brothers were readying their debut album for release. Matthew and Gunnar Nelson, the sons of late rock pioneer Rick Nelson.
Went to a garden party, reminisce with my old...
And the grandsons of Ozzie and Harriet.
Here's Ozzie. Here's Harriet.
Nelson would become the first and only act in the history of rock and roll to chart a third-generation #1 hit when they went to #1 with their rock ballad, Love and Affection. Not even the Jacksons have done that, although it could still happen. Janet and Michael have offspring, but I digress. Matthew and Gunnar's debut album, it actually had 3 top 15 hits. After Love and Affection hit #1 on the Hot 100 and #20 on the rock charts, the songs after that were After the Rain, that went to #6, and More Than Ever went to #14. They even had a 4th hit from that record, Only Time Will Tell. That went to #28. Not many albums that year had 4 top 30 hits outside of the Janets and Mariahs. Now what follows is a recent Zoom session that I did with both Matthew and Gunnar, live from their studio in Nashville, where they take us through the creation of the aforementioned #1 hit, Love and Affection, with a hands-on acoustic song telling of it, as well as some insight about their late father, Rick Nelson. And you'll find, as I did, the Nelsons are 2 of the nicest guys in the business. I remember the first time that I heard this song. I love the harmonies, ear candy for sure. Now, as we go into this interview, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, who supports our mission of keeping the music alive. I'm actually wearing a new pair today. I customized them, chose the color, put Professor of Rock on the side here. I added a pair of sunglasses. I got them right here. And I have blocks on these that protect me from digital blue light. I love these. Go to Zenni.com and give it a whirl. You're going to dig it for less than the price of a vinyl record. Here's Matthew and Gunnar with the story of a Love and Affection. The Nelson family is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the only family with 3 generations of #1 hit makers.
The family business.
Ozzie having a #1 hit in 1935 and then some.
Darling, you're perfect, and then some.
Your dad did it several times. Poor Little Fool was the first one.
Poor little fool. Oh, yeah.
And then you guys with Love and Affection.
I can't live without your love and affection.
I heard Love and Affection. I didn't know who it was. I heard it on the radio. It came on. Had no prior understanding of what it was. When I heard it, it blew me away. I was like, man, the harmonies in this, the guitar part. And I was like, I want to go buy this. And I was hoping the DJ would say who sang it. And when they said Nelson, I was like, gosh, I wonder if that's the Nelson twins. Because I've heard it. I mean, I watched Ozzie and Harriet with my dad. I have so many memories of that as a kid. And then I went out and bought it. Love and Affection is a parentheses song. I always like to talk about that. The songs and then the parentheses.
What that means is we couldn't figure out what the title of the song actually was, so we wanted to cover our bases.
We actually couldn't. We couldn't figure out what to name it. I Can't Live Without Your Love.
I know it's a pretty long song title, but apparently Ozzie Nelson still holds the record with the longest song title in music history. And his song was called I'm Looking for a Guy Who Plays Alto and Baritone and Doubles on the Clarinet and Wears a Size 37 Suit.
And doubles on a clarinet and wears a size 37 suit.
But yeah, Oz was such a great guy. I mean, before they got into the Ozzie and Harriet show, as Matt mentioned, they had their big band, and that was his first love. Music was always his passion. They decided to try doing the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet on radio as something to kind of do when it wasn't the band's touring season, just something to do in the off season.
Of Ozzie and Harriet, starring America's favorite young couple, Ozzie Nelson and Harriet Hilliard.
Their banter back and forth between each other, between Oz and Harriet, was so natural and comical. And the network heard it, decided to do a pilot, which at that time meant making a feature film.
And basically that blew up. It was successful, and they optioned it for TV. So I it was 1952 or 51.
Yeah, but much to Ozzie's chagrin, in his autobiography, he said, look, I thought the TV show was going to be a goof.
The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, starring the entire Nelson family.
David was the straight man. Our pop, especially, was such a cut up and a natural right in the beginning. He started as the irrepressible Ricky.
David Nelson and his younger brother, the irrepressible Ricky, played by Ricky Nelson.
They just did a great job. But we just watched that professionalism all through the years. I think that's what we kind of got a hold of more than anything, was nothing worth having is gotten easy. You got to work hard for it.
When our father started making music and wanting to do that, it was really cool for Oz because, there was no such thing as a music producer at the time. Oz was in the studio with our dad, and he could live vicariously through our father and make music, that was brand new. There were no rules, there were no producers, they're shooting from the hip.
He was always trying to throw a saxophone in there. And our pop was not a saxophone guy. I think on his first single, and he had to say, Pop, really, I just don't think rock and roll is a saxophone for me personally. But he was always trying to sneak that in, and ukulele and tenor guitar, which was big in his day. And he got his revenge once when they couldn't find the right instrument on Hello, Mary Lou. And he joked that he should go get his tenor guitar. And they said, yeah. He went home, he got it. And if you listen to Hello, Mary Lou, arguably our pop's biggest single ever, there's no drums on it. The rhythms is like, that's Ozzie on the tenor guitar. That's why it sounds so unique.
It's a cowbell and a tenor guitar.
Hello, Mary Lou. Goodbye, heart, sweet.
But it gave them such a great, different, yet vital sound. But they were doing it their way, I just thought it was cool that the father and the son were working together, and it was coming full circle. And obviously, if our dad were still alive today, we'd still be making music with him.
He admitted that he was not a great teacher. He'd get very frustrated when I'd ask him for chord help or something like that. He would always just say, just keep believing what you're doing and just keep doing it, man. He was so proud of us, but he really wanted us to figure it out. He admitted to me later he just sucked as a teacher. And, because he was self-taught, so he didn't know how to explain that, really. On our 12th birthday, we'd been doing it for a few years just in the barn playing together, and we just started writing. And he surprised us with a birthday party. We thought it was an appointment to get our dental fillings, our teeth drilled. There's our dad waving by our instruments, and it was a recording studio. We were so pissed off we didn't put it together. This doesn't look like a dentist's office. There's no sign or anything like that. And we recorded the first song that we ever wrote. He produced it through the night. The family came. We had birthday cake. These great chicks came in and sang "Back Up." We didn't know until they left it was the Pointer Sisters. Gunnar and I always wanted, we can't remember not wanting to play music. We grew up with literally the Stone Canyon Band in our nursery.
Our first memories. Yeah, man. To be honest with you, it was really always our normal from our first conscious memories. Mine was sitting on an apple crate on the side of the stage at Knott's Berry Farm. They called it the Good Time Theater. But I remember actually sitting off to the side of the stage and seeing him on stage, making the connection. He's having a great time. Everyone's screaming and loving him. That's the greatest job in the world. I want to do that, whatever that is. And I talked to my mom about it later, and she goes, you were like 2.5, maybe. And that was really my first, like, this is great. And so around the house, you had all these hippies around, and they literally pushed our cribs aside in our nursery to rehearse the Stone Canyon Band. You know, Matthew was always jumping on the bass, and I was always jumping on our dad's drummer's drum set and driving him crazy. So out of desperation, our father finally broke down, went down to Ventura Boulevard and went to a pawn shop, got some ratty instruments, and stuck us out in the hayloft in the barn so we could make our racket and not bother them. And, you know, of course, that was when we were 6 years old. Work forward, 5 years, we're still at it, and we're still doing it. It wasn't a hobby. When other kids were blowing up mailboxes, we were rehearsing the Kiss records.
I mean, to this day, when I smell horse poop, I think of Nick Gilder's Hot Child in the City.
Hell yeah.
You know, the first single that we were going to play. Oh, Hot Child in the City. It's horse poop.
Child in the city. Hot child.
We actually started out in LA playing the club scene. It's ironic to us that we got kind of branded with that whole hair metal thing on the Sunset Strip, and that's how they marketed us when we were on Geffen. But honestly, that's never what we were. We were a heavy pop band. We were guys that grew up in Southern California that were trying to emulate the music that we actually were raised around. And we were raised when our dad was playing at the Troubadour with the Stone Pony, with Linda Ronstadt's first band, with Jackson Browne, Joni Mitchell, Buffalo Springfield, which would become Crosby, Stills, and Nash, all these great acts.
And then the LA punk thing happened with bands like X and Black Flag, listening to that stuff, but also all the new wave stuff, anything that started with the. We were playing on stages maybe at different levels of the club because you really had to make it upstairs at Wong's. But it was like with the motels, the 3 o'clock was a big one.
The Knack, the Bangles, the Go-Go's, and here come these little Nelson kids. We're 12 years old, lugging our gear upstairs and playing full sets of original songs. Usually when people start out, they're playing covers. Matt and I actually, our father gave us a few words of advice when we were actually coming up. And he was really kind of a hands-off guy when it came to our music. He would say, keep your sense of humor, because you're going to need it if you're going to do this, and write original songs. So we had the blessing of coming up with a father who was going through his musical renaissance. He too was learning how to write. He just caught a hit with Garden Party, song he had written.
All right now, I learned my lesson.
We saw how much joy that gave him. And honestly, those two words of advice to us have really served us throughout our careers.
A friend of ours that actually was producing our father, a guy named John Boylan. So we talked to John, and his secret, he said, was songs. You have to write the songs. It's not about, and this is funny talking to us, it's not about your image. It's not about the gear. It's not about all that stuff. You just need the right songs. Song being the start with one. And I remember that came in so true. Gunnar and I, after our father died, we basically wound up finding ourselves immediately upside down. We were living with him at the time after years and years of not being able to really see him because our parents had a horrible divorce. On our 18th birthday, we moved in with him. 4 months later, he died. And we were supposed to be on the plane with him when that happened. And so our life just turned upside down. We played Saturday Night Live as I think the only unsigned band to ever play it.
Saturday Night Live! Musical guest, the Nelson!
Saturday Night Live, only unsigned band ever.
Yeah, it's true. And our hair was Adam Curry high, and also Gunner's playing drums at the time. But they were our songs. And on the way back, Gunnar just had this epiphany that it wasn't right. He said, look, I'm not emotionally together, and I was trying to brave my way through it. So I kind of freaked out. He basically broke up our band on the plane ride home after Saturday Night Live. He was right. He said, listen, I'm going to learn how to play guitar and come up front. He'd never played a note on guitar, ever. And so, again, I'm losing my mind. This is years and years of us playing as a rhythm section and stuff. And now he's like, and I want to sing lead. I'm like, dude, you're a drummer. Get back there, But he said, if I have a guitar in my hand every day, he said, if I really concentrate on it, and I got to give him credit, he really wanted it. And he was right. The natural duo that we've found when he came up and started playing guitar very well, I might add, and singing, we found out also that I used to be primarily the lead singer guy. It turned out that I actually have a real ability as a harmony vocalist. I sing lead sometimes too, like the beginning of After the Rain is me, and then Gunnar takes over.
Don't be afraid to lose.
But we have this natural thing that I believe is truly unique in pop music. You know, we are a natural double duo, and people always talk about sibling harmonies. We're the same dude. We split from the same cell. So it can't harmonically, when we want to harmonize, it sounds like we're doubling ourselves with different pitch.
Thinks I'm a waste of her time.
Our greatest achievements have always been two brothers and two acoustic guitars, believe it or not. But there's something that happens, this magic of the two of us, two acoustic guitar, it's honest. When we sing together, that to me is my favorite thing to do.
No, she don't know what she's missing. Can't she see?
It'd be cool, actually, if you kind of show me on the guitar.
Love and Affection is really interesting on guitar because we actually kind of messed people up because Love and Affection actually isn't a 12-string in the beginning. Love and Affection is actually two 6-strings, tuned different.
Actually. It's three guitars.
We actually learned the trick from a guy named Fred Wallachy, who ran a place in Los Angeles called Westwood Music. We were spending a lot of time in Westwood Music talking about alternate tunings and different tricks. And, you know, we're 18 years old when we're learning all of this stuff. And when we put Love and Affection together, what we wound up doing is taking a baritone tuned acoustic guitar, and I played that open in the D position. And Matthew tuned up 7 frets and played it in the G position and panned them.
And I actually got another guitar. I detuned that and played it low. You can actually hear on the record, there's a fret rattle. That our A&R guy, John Clonner, said, I hate that.
He hated it.
And I said, no, leave it in. It was like John Lennon. I remember him saying, you know, you make a mistake, turn it up, they'll think you did it on purpose. Here's where I was, capo. So I was... So that's it. And for me, my thing was playing it open, and I would play it here. It's the same tuning. Imagine this open map was capo with mine.
Here she comes, just like an angel.
And believe it or not, I know they sound really similar as far as that, but they're different strings that are open. The harmonics are different. It's just a little bit different. It's just enough to mess up every 15-year-old kid that tried to learn it.
Went to #1 in the U.S., #11 in Canada, #20 in Australia, and co-written with Mark Tanner.
And Mark was someone we owe a lot to from a time in our lives when we really didn't have the confidence to know who we really were as artists and writers. Had a mid-level hit with a song called Elena.
Come closer, Elena, take off my love.
And while I was learning how to play guitar, we had some time off, and we started learning how to write songs.
You guys were, for a year, you would go every single week with the A&R guy.
Well, we started going down and pitching things to John Kalodner. For the viewers out there that don't know who John Kalodner is, he was the guy that worked with us as the record company representative. They call it A&R. And the A&R guy is the one who's supposed to, basically, he's kind of like the executive producer. He puts band members together. He puts you with songwriters. He'll set up the studio producer and engineer and the mix guy and all that kind of stuff. And you needed to have an A&R guy. You needed to have a label back then. If you watched the Dude Looks Like a Lady video for Aerosmith, the guy who turns around in the wedding dress, that's John Kalodner. He's responsible for a lot of great music. And we always wanted to go for John Kalodner when we were working our way up to get the record deal, because we figured it was going to take us a while to develop ourselves. We got to the John Kalodner phase about 2 years after we met Mark Tanner, who you mentioned. And
Gunnar and I actually were absolutely broke ass by that time. And they weren't, it had been years of us going and dealing with this Kalodner thing. And Gunnar and I were kind of fed up. And when we wrote Love and Affection, we didn't have an appointment, which was a big faux pas in those days. But showed up at the label and said, we need to see John. It's like, well, she's busy. Like, I don't care if he's busy. We're coming in. And I remember we
walked into a hostile room.
He was like, what are you doing here? And I took out the guitar, and Gunnar and I said, we've got something to play for you. And
we said, you're going to sit down, you're going to shut up, and you're going to listen. And we played the song that we had written that morning.
Just like an angel, seems like forever that she's been on my mind.
And he just said simply, now that's what I was waiting to see. He picked up the phone, called business fairs, and said, press green on the Nelson deal. It's a go, and hung up the phone. And that's how
it
we
was
got
like
our
one of
record.
those proverbial Hollywood moments. You know, he'd basically been torturing us until we came through with the goods.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, it made us work hard. Love and Affection, too, was on the cutting room floor when we actually recorded it. You know, sometimes a song doesn't translate, and whatever happened that day in the studio at Cherokee, it didn't work out. Gunnar and I chose to take what was left of it, took it to a friend of ours named David Holman. His past was working with Olivia Newton-John as an engineer. David, we knew, had this really freak show recording console at the time that was custom built. And we brought the song up to him, and he gave it a listen. He said, okay, you're not going to like what I have to say. We have to record almost all of it over again. And to be honest with you, it was like, oh man, okay. And we really did. We re-recorded the thing, re-sang the thing. He mixed it. And to this day, Mark Tanner hates the mix of Love and Affection. And all I can say is it's freaking iconic.
I always understood it that you guys originally wrote it as kind of a guy being trapped in the friend zone, that you guys in high school,
oh yeah,
you weren't the popular kids, and you would have girls who would come to you and tell you about relationship problems, and you give them advice and they go back to this dirtbag or whatever. Tell me about that.
Oh, that happened a lot.
That resonated with me because I was in the same boat.
You were the nice guy, weren't you?
It works out in the end.
Yeah, it does. But in high school, it doesn't make you feel any better, does it?
I know. Exactly.
I know. We were the poor kids in a wealthy neighborhood. I mean, we're talking smoking hot chicks in school. Loved me and Matthew. We were the sensitive musician types. They'd come talk to us about some guy that just had trashed them or banged their best girlfriend or whatever. We'd make them feel good about themselves. And then they go back to when we thought, oh, yeah, there's going to be hope. They're going to think, oh, they want a nice guy, finally. And then you'd find out the next day they went right back to the guy's house and stuff. And that was just a theme. And so Love and Affection came from being those guys.
There was the urban legend about the guitar riff when you were looking at a Vogue with Cindy Crawford on the cover.
That is true. Well, Cindy was hot and smoking. I thought she was a really hot girl. She still is a beautiful lady. And that was true. I was looking at a picture of her. And Gunnar was in the other room, I think, taking a break. We were just doing a songwriting thing that day. It was just Gunnar and I that started it. I just kind of zoning out doing that. And Gunnar said, what was that? I said, what was what? And he said, that thing you were playing just a second ago. I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I'm really glad I had this. And he held up a micro cassette recorder. And it captured it.
The video was vague instead of Vogue.
Yeah.
Done.
The thing about the song, though, is it's very technical drumming involving syncopation, double bass. Virtuoso guitar soloing. This is a very complex song.
It is. And again, I was mentioning that the players that we put together, like Brett Garsett, who played the solo is actually deceptively difficult. When you dissect the solo there, you literally have these machines now that slow it down because it's a very simple solo. When you listen, da 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 da, and then it's this run that just da 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 da. We had a virtuoso drummer named Bobby Rock. You know, he's a great guy. We've been through a lot with him. He's always going to be a brother. But in that song in particular, he played a great job of it at Cherokee when we cut the basic track. And we used 95% of what he was doing, except for something that was really crucial. And Gunnar heard something in his head in the chorus. And he said, it's a hook, man. It really is important. We have to have it do this thing.
What he's talking about in particular is when you're on the hook. I can't live without your love and affection. Right? I just want him to do that on every one of those hooks to emphasize it. I can't live without your love and affection.
It's that stop really gets you right before you guys come in with a vocal.
So I wait.
And then it's subtle. I love that part. That wasn't being done as much in pop music. Beach Boys did that on a song, Little Girl I Once Knew, where they stopped. And that was a little bit of a risk back then because people thought the song was over, so they'd switch the station so it didn't go as high in the charts.
We didn't pause that long.
You didn't pause that long, but it brought something different to the song.
Arrangement was a big deal.
Yeah.
To make things sound unique and interesting, because you had to have these moments as the song progressed.
Like you mentioned, Bread, they were geniuses about that.
Just to have you.
So each section's kind of treated like its own song within a song. And when we put Love and Affection together and a lot of the other songs on that first record, because we were limited by technology, you know, you keep people's interest by writing a movement at a time. And so that one section there is just one of those. And then when you start listening to it over and over and over again, you're hearing things that you've never heard before.
Love and Affection's good about that. Yeah.
And the other thing is when that drum part comes at the very end and you guys come in full throttle, I can't live without you.
Yep. Yep.
I love how you guys bring it back at the end with the can't live without your love, and there she goes. Oh. What a great pop song. It's already great, but then there's that heavenly, immaculate part of a pop song where you get to that, just that really great part, and that's always the part for me.
Well, thank you. You know, that's a nice thing too, is the whenever we start the song, of course, that in concert, you know, the audience goes crazy, but it's when we say, here she comes. I mean, it's like, then that's just berserk.
Here she comes.
You know, that whole, here she comes, that first one, he knows it pans in the field. He totally ripped that off from Supertramp, Crime of the Century.
In the video, you can see the black and white part of the video. I kind of do this.
Here she comes.
When this went to #1, you guys at the time were the only ones besides the Bee Gees to have twins that hit #1. The other thing too, to my knowledge, this is the only song in the history of the Hot 100 that has the word affection in the title that made the Hot 100.
No way.
That may have changed in the last few years.
That's way cool.
The Love and Affection also, I think Adam Sandler's got to be a fan because Sandy Wexler.
Very good. Very bad.
What's cool about Adam Sandler is he only puts the music in his stuff that he loves.
Yeah, that's good. First of all, I love Adam Sandler. I really do. And I love the fact that his movies are always, in his movies, it's just look, I like the same music because it's always a cool playlist.
It's also used in Good Behavior.
We've been talking to our music publishers lately, and we're talking about the fact that right about now, all those songs are starting to come back and starting to be used in movies and all that. So, I mean, it would be really nice actually to hear more than ever Love and Affection after the rain, Only Time Will Tell, you know, on more movies. We think that'd be great. Look, we are so blessed to be alive during this time and be able to sit here and talk and kind of reminisce on all of this stuff. Like so many people out there that are listening to you and watching you. Again, these songs have been lifesavers to us. I don't know, honestly, where either one of us would be without this shared love of music that we have.
God only knows.
Music shapes so many people, so many millions and millions and millions of people in ways that maybe they themselves aren't even aware of.
Hey, thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about the Nelson family and this 90s rock ballad about Matthew and Gunnar and Rick. What are your memories of this? Let me know in the comments. This was a staple of junior high dances at that time for me. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe so you never miss out on our daily content, interviews with the greatest artists breaking down the greatest songs. Make sure that you click on our Patreon link at the end of this as well. There you can see our new show, and I think you'll like it. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe out there.